Don't ask me, because I had a hard time doing me.
Gotta wait one more minute. or
Oh,
not?
seriously.
Wait, it already is.
Come on, chop chop.
I don't know if we gotta wait a minute or not.
You got the camera on home? You just started? Okay.
Yeah, that says 6:29.
Nope.
It's 6:30.
Okay. Call the meeting of December 9th, 2019 to order at 6:30, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of note, Rob and Deb are excused. They will be showing up to the meeting a little bit late. Consideration of agenda. Any public, nobody with public comments? Oh, we need to accept the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Lauren,
Second.
Sandy. No public comments. First thing,
Vote.
All in favor?
all in favor, thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, no public comments. Acceptance of oath and office, Ryan. I'll have you come up to the front and Hope will read it for you.
I swear affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I swear affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And of this state.
and of this state,
And that I will discharge faithfully.
and that I will discharge faithfully
The duties of the office of school board member.
the duties of the office of school board member
Of Independent School District number 717.
of Independent School District number 717
To the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Next up is the audit presentation by Ide Bailey.
That's what I'm going to be going through today.
Is that you as a small child?
I wish. So,
I know.
It is.
my name is Blake Bodie. I was on the audit for the school district for a year. I might have been the one hassling you guys a little bit for phone calls for crowd interviews, so thank you to whoever answered. So going on.
Just scroll. It's a PDF.
Okay. So we have the audit results. So essentially why you contracted by Bailey is to receive an audit opinion. The audit opinion for the school district received was a clean audit opinion. So essentially that was an unmodified opinion, and that meant that the financial statements are prepared with US GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. Essentially it says that the financial statements are materially correct, which means that there can be misstatements, but they're not material. The difference between material and not material is, so there's $20 million of expenditures that the district had written here. Can it be off $1, and would you guys still make the same decisions? I would say probably. If it's off $10, probably make the same decisions? Yes. If it's off $1 million, it might sort of change a little bit. So that's the difference between material. It's materially correct. It can be off $1 here or there, but in total, it's materially correct, or it wouldn't change your opinion to make any sort of decisions. Going on from there. Another audit that we do is the audit of federal funds. So essentially, the school district has funds that are received from the federal government, and once you get over a threshold, and that threshold is $750,000, you have to have a compliance audit, which is referenced as a single audit. So essentially, your biggest major program, which we tested here, is child nutrition and special education. We test those two things for compliance to make sure that they are compliant with the federal regulations and stipulations that they put in contact to receive those monies. four sections that you can get findings for financial statements, student activities, federal awards, which is that single audit, and then Minnesota legal compliance. So you had, there were no findings for student activities and Minnesota legal compliance. The two findings for in the financial statements were preparation of the financial statements and material journal entries. Related to that, it's very common to have those two findings, specifically the material journal entries and preparation of financial statements. I'm on 20 plus audits during the year, and I would say those two are on 95% of the audits that I do. As far as for the federal awards, the one sort of compliance issue that we had was there were bids last year that we didn't pick the lowest bidder for food service. The only reason that it was a finding this year is because instead of going out for bid again, we just renewed the contract. So specifically for single audits, whenever we have a finding, they're looking for complete remediation of that finding. And since we didn't go out and fix that finding in 2019, then that's why it resulted in a repeat finding. Even though you didn't bid it, it still wasn't resolved. I was told in the current year, and I looked at the minutes in the current year, is that we did go out for bids in fiscal year 2020 or 2020, so that should be gone next year for findings. So we should have remediated that in 2020. The next section, cash and investments. So essentially, as with anything, cash is sort of king. We want to make sure that we have enough cash on hand to meet our needs for what we're going to pay. Obviously, with the school district, we're obviously a service industry, so the biggest sort of asset we have is our teachers. So the biggest amounts that we pay out expenditures are going to be our salaries and benefits. So essentially, those are going to be recurring expenditures all the time. We want to make sure that we have enough cash on hand. As you see, for the last sort of 6 years, we've been sort of consistent. The big jump from 2013 to 2014 is the change in the payment structure from the Minnesota Department of Education. Ways back, the state of Minnesota was running a deficit, so they withheld funds from school districts. And in 2014, they actually changed that pay structure to actually give us more during the year. So it went from about 80% of the money received during the year to about 90%, and they've kept that consistent from then on. Moving on from there, we're going to go over the general fund, and the general fund is specifically driven by student counts. So here we have the student counts for the last 10 years. As you see, it's very consistent, generally trending up. We actually did have sort of a bigger bump this year, an increase of about 70 kids. And when I say this year, auditors always talk in the past. So I'm talking fiscal year 19. So from 18 to 19, there was a jump of about 70 kids. Next, we're going to go over the budget to actual. Let me know if you guys can see this. And also, as a caveat, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to raise your hand or ask me at any time. So the budget to actual, as you see, we have about $21 million in revenues and about, again, $21 million in expenditures. The biggest deviation between our final budget here and our actual budget was the state sources and the regular instruction down here. And as you see, they both about net out to be the same difference. The reason for that is our teachers and our Teacher Retirement Association fund, pension fund, and the administration and the Public Employee Retirement Association, they get money submitted to the pension funds from the state. The state requires the school districts to recognize the revenue that they get from essentially them subsidizing it. So we have to recognize the revenue and expense. So that's why the actual revenues are high right here and the actual expenses are higher here. It's just a net offset in and out. School district never receives any of the money. It's just some fancy accounting thing that the Minnesota Department of Education has us do every year. And the reason we can't budget for that is because we don't know the amount at all until the audit reports for the pension funds are issued, which they still aren't issued yet for 2020, which is why we have trouble budgeting. Moving on. So things why you want a positive fund balance. One contributes to a favorable bond rating, which we just went out for bond recently in the past couple of years, so I don't think we're too concerned about that. Number two, it produces investment income. And then three, it gives you a cushion for any shortfalls. If something happens, if we need roof repair, if a tornado comes through, anything like that, it gives us a cushion for sort of the catastrophic stuff. Going on from there, so the changes in the fund balance. As you saw on the last slide, the net change in the general fund balance increased about 250,000. So it went up from about 2,190,000 to about $2,440,000. So overall, the fund balance only changed about 10%, which isn't much. What all these different little categories are different restrictions on the fund balances. So up top we have non-spendable. So last year it was 55,000. This year is 25,000. Essentially, what that is inventory. So it's in your fund balance, but you can't really spend it. So if you wanted to take that fund balance and spend it on teacher salaries, you're not going to be able to pay them with like food or prepaid items. It's sort of a sunk cost. The next sort of section here we have is all the different restrictions. These are restricted by the Minnesota Department of Education. They give you certain amounts for, say, staff development every year. So that's different expenses that qualify for that need to qualify specifically for that expense, for that fund balance to be used up. So just because you have a large amount of fund balance in the restrictions does not mean you can use them for anything. That would reside in this unassigned. So that's your rainy day fund. That's what you can use on anything and everything. So that's what we would like to see the highest out of all these fund balances. Next is sort of what I've already gone over, fund balance categories. So again, there's the non-spendable, which is normally your inventory and prepaid expenses. Your restricted, which is legally restricted, which is state. Committed and unassigned are either committed by the board or by somebody in management, and maybe it's, hey, we need to set aside money for a roof project, we'll put it in committed. Committed, unassigned, and assigned can all sort of be lumped into one because if need be, you can make those funds available. So if you want to restrict it, you can, but it's not as tied up as the restricted fund balances are. Next, we have fund balances, sort of a classification of those 5 different fund balance classifications for the past sort of 10 years. So you can sort of see where we're at. So we've been up and down, but recently we've been trending up. As you see, our restricted balance actually grew a little bit this year as opposed to last year. And again, here's our unassigned fund balance, which is what we want to be the biggest fund balance. Everyone always asks, hey, what should we have fund balance at our school district? So the Minnesota Office of the State Auditor recommends 35 to 50% of your annual expenditures to be in your fund balance. I would preface that a little bit with the OSA looks at not only school districts, but it looks at counties, cities, towns, special entities, sort of government entity. So that was an overarching 35 to 50. Currently at this district, we have a minimum fund balance policy of 12%. So going on from there, based on your fund balance policy of that 12%, so that red line is where your minimum fund balance policy is, and then here's where your fund balance actually sits.
Minnesota, the average operating levy authority is $1,200 per pupil, and we have 724. So that's why we're at 12% and not 25%.
Yeah. There's different things everywhere, but yeah, it eventually comes in somewhere. Going on from there, so I was just going over the general fund. This is gonna go over in general some of the other funds that we have. One of the other funds is the community service. And again, this is just the fund balance. As you see, the fund balance has gone up in the community service. That's because a couple of years ago, we built the next building currently, so you can sort of see hand in hand why that fund balance is going up. So I would say just keep on going along with the community service fund. Food service fund is a little bit of the opposite scenario. As you see, we were doing really well back in about 2014, and then we've sort of been slouching ever since. This red line right here is the maximum allowable expenditures. So essentially, the food service fund, the state doesn't want you to make too much money off of charging kids for school lunch. So they say if you get over, it's 3 months expenditures. If you get over 3 months expenditures in your fund balance, you need to cut that down. So we did, I think, some drastic cuts in these 2 years, and then we've sort of been dwindling down as well. So we should probably reevaluate how we're gonna bump up that fund balance, because if that goes into a deficit or gets too low, it does have to be subsidized by the general fund. So now you're taking even more out of the general fund, which is something that we obviously don't want to do. Next is the debt service fund. Obviously, the fund balance for the debt service fund is extremely high. That is because we did a bond refunding. So we had the cash sitting in the bank. The original bond that we did for the project isn't callable till, I believe, it's this fiscal year. Yeah, so essentially, we have all that cash sitting from the refunding in a bank. We have 2 liabilities. Once that first bond is callable, cash will get transferred, this fund balance will go way down. So that's why it's essentially $20 million, because we have double the debt on our books. But we have pretty much all the cash from one of them sitting in the bank waiting for it to be paid off. Last thing that we like to go over is sort of a expenditure versus the state average. We like to focus on 3 things: the administration, regular instruction, special education, and then food service. So as you see, this first blue line, that is the 2019 actual based on the voting and the audit. And this bar right here, the green one, 2018, that is prior year's data. So, and then 2018, this is the state average. So we take total expenditures for administration divided by, for the school district, it would be your student counts. But then for the state, they take total administration divided by total number of students and get the average. They also do a similar breakdown, which is state average, similar size. We would be in the 1,000 to 2,000 ADM bucket. So that's what school districts are, or Jordan size is doing as well. So we're a little bit lower on the administration side. For 2018, we were pretty consistent. The reason that we have the state averages from 2018 is because they haven't compiled all the data for 2019. So we can just show you the most recent data. I would assume that the 2019 state average is going to be pretty similar again to what we have for regular instruction. That's where I would assume. Special education, I don't know if you guys have been told, but it is a mess trying to figure out the revenues and expenditures for special education every single school year, depending on what type of needs kids you have in your district. So that can vary. But it looks like last year and this year we were a little bit below average. And then food service is relatively consistent, but I would say we just sort of sneak under what the state average in similar sizes. Other than that, I just have a question slide and a thank you slide. If you guys have anything, that wasn't.
He looks like you.
Mine is not so much a question as a statement. The slide you just showed, I think it's important for the public to know that we are below the state average and below other districts size-wise in our administration costs. That's something that we have inaccurately been hearing in the community, and I think it's important for the community to know that we are not administration heavy. In fact, we're very administration light, especially in comparison to other districts and the state average.
And to go with that one, we spend more in regular classroom instruction than, well, $800 more per pupil for similar size, and $700, well, $300 more on just the state average.
Mhm.
So the money is going to teach the kids.
Which is what it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I wouldn't look bad upon high numbers for regular instruction,
Mhm.
because you pay for good people.
Yeah.
Again,
Right.
it's a service industry, you pay for good people.
Mhm.
I just have a question. One of our findings was not getting the second year bid on the food service.
Yep.
Why would we not get a bid, and this isn't to you, but it's to Matt, why wouldn't we get a bid every year on food service?
I think we had a contracted price that we exercised the second year option.
Yep, so we still looked at the contract, so essentially it was bid out in the first year, and it was a 2-year bid. So when you guys accepted the first year and then rolled it, from my perspective and from the federal government's perspective, they want to see the finding be resolved. But since we just continued the contract, could we see some sort of resolvement from the district's end? We couldn't get to that level because you guys just rolled it forward. Granted, you guys had already approved it in the past, but you guys just rolled it forward, versus this year you did brand new bidding.
Mhm.
So that should all be a thing of the past. Does that make sense?
Do we get a better deal if we do a 2-year bid, or why wouldn't we bid once every year? I don't understand.
So what exactly was the finding? Is the expectation that it's done every year? Or what was the
Yeah,
original
so
finding?
One of the specific requirements of that specific federal cluster is procurement. And they want to make sure that you get the best deal available, making sure that you're not favoriting anybody, that you go with the lowest deal possible. It's sort of.
So theoretically, if you went out to bid and somebody gave you a price protection for 3 years, you'd be in violation of that finding, even though it may be the only way that you're gonna manage your costs year over year.
So if you follow the guidelines for making sure that it's the cheapest option in the initial year, and then you roll it forward, you would be fine, but it's just because it wasn't the cheapest option that.
Got it,
initial
okay,
year.
got it.
And from my understanding, there were some other extenuating circumstances that we maybe chose that other vendor.
Service factors. Yeah.
And that's one of them, but from our perspective, we just need that documented. So we just, so for instance, in the minutes, it just says, board approved bid of whoever it was. But we need to see, well, okay, board didn't approve lowest bid, here's why, X, Y, Z. You can have, the federal government allows other extenuating circumstances for you to pick something that's not the low bidder. Maybe it's service in the past, these other vendor, you've had them, they've done a bad job, but you just need to sort of document that, and that's where I think where it might have fell through the cracks a little bit.
In the minutes, you document that? Is that what you're saying?
Yep, or just do some sort of analysis.
Okay.
Food service is very hard just because it's not a 1v1 thing. They can't just give you a price that says, it's not like, I was gonna say snow removal, but snow removal isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, they'll give you a different price for bread, they'll give you a different price for milk, and for lunches, and for a la carte, and maybe they'll have more options that you think that the a la carte will make up for sales, and it's not a perfect one-for-one. So if you do some sort of analysis and say, here's our basis, we'll be fine with it, as long as it has some rationale behind it.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you. I just want to say that I really appreciated the format of the synopsis of the audit. It was very understandable and very user-friendly. Good job. Good.
You guys should have also got the financial statements. That's the 80-page one.
Mhm,
If you
we
guys
did.
do have any questions on that, let me know. The reason that we don't go over that one in this is because it is 80 pages.
Sure.
It's a lot of stuff. Sometimes it gets confusing, so that's why we go over this. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your
Thank you.
presentation. And this will be an action item later in the agenda, approval of it. So thank you very much. Okay, truth and taxation presentation.
He said you can still hear it, it's just not as loud.
Does it work if she uses this, Matt?
Yeah.
If we just move that over there? Will it reach that far?
Yep. Should.
I'd hold it from the bottom.
Slide will be
Now I'm going to be really loud. You can. So, you're here tonight for the Minnesota's Truth in Taxation. Our law requires that cities, counties, school districts follow certain steps before adopting a tax levy for the following year. One important part of the law requires mailed notices to each property tax owner in the county, which describes the tax levies proposed by the city, council, and school district, and what % increase such a levy would mean in dollars. So a second part, next page. A second part of the law pertains to a truth in taxation public meeting, which is why we're here tonight. Next page. Sorry. So we're here tonight to discuss the proposed property tax levies for the taxes payable 2020. This will provide and discuss information on the current budget for the 2019-20 school year. Public must be given a reasonable amount of time to comment on the proposed property tax levy and budget and ask questions. That's by the Minnesota State statute. Points to remember is our revenue formulas are set by the state legislature to accept for voter-approved referendums. Local levy and state aid mix are set by the state legislature, and an increase in local taxes does not necessarily mean an increase in revenues for the school district. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our school budget. School district is required to do fund accounting, which we've talked about many times. We have the general fund, the food service fund, community service fund, building construction fund, and debt service fund. So the funds with the asterisks by them are supported by a tax levy component. So fund accounting, our general fund. The revenue is based off student enrollment. The local referendum levy is part of the general fund. The general fund provides classroom instruction, instructional supplies, equipment, and educational activities. It provides special education and state federal mandated programs, extracurricular activities, pupil transportation, facilities operation and maintenance, capital expenditures, and long-term facility maintenance. The food service fund, which is Fund 2, provides school breakfast and the lunch program. Community service, the levy is based on the adult population in the district. Early childhood levy is based on the number of children under 5 years of age. Community service also provides enrichment program for any age level that are not part of the K-12 educational program. It's early childhood family education, school readiness, and adult basic education. As Blake talked about, the debt service fund. The debt service is a retirement schedules for the district's outstanding bonded indebtedness. Any annual levy is for the payment of principal and interest on the bonds that are due. Our current debt is for the 2003 construction of the high school, the 2003 addition of the elementary school, and the 2014 middle school remodel and the addition of the CIRC. Shortly before I started, the district chose to refund or refinance a portion of the debt, which literally saved the taxpayers millions of dollars in interest. So this is just our 2019-20 budget overview. So the first column has the 18-19 actual expenditures, and then there's the 2019-20 adopted budget numbers. So the difference between the actual numbers as noted in the bottom, the actual numbers and the budget numbers, the actual numbers is actual audited data after all the accounting and all the necessary entries have been made. And so the reason why the 2018-19 dollars are higher than the adopted is because of that PERA and TRA, the GASB 68 requirements. And those are unknown. Like, so for example, in 2018, I believe our number, it was well under $100,000. And for 2019, it was in the $500,000. So it's just that unpredictable, and so we don't put it on our budget. So that's where the discrepancy is. So our general revenue, for the general fund revenue, let's see, 84% comes from state aid, 13% comes from local revenues, which is our local tax levy and fees and things like that. 3% is from federal dollars. So this is our 2019-20 budget. Again, comparing the actual budget numbers, or the actual numbers to the budget numbers, and the big difference is the same reason. And another reason why the difference is between 18 and 19 and 19 and 20 is because we have to also show the student activity accounts in the 2019-20 budget, which is also a GASB 84. So there's just all new requirements. So in a couple months, we will bring a revised budget to the table, and those numbers will change at that time. So where are our general fund dollars being spent? So out of all of our general fund adopted budget, 5.33% is for district and school administration, and so on. So 46%, which is the highest number, and that's for our regular instruction. There's a small percentage of 1.44 for vocational instruction. 18.9% is for special instruction. And then we go down a little further, 11% is for sites and buildings equipment. All those add up to 100%. So what does our general fund expenditure budget pay for? It pays for salaries, which is about 61%. Benefits is 15%. Purchase of services is 16%. Supplies and materials is 3%. Capital expenditures is 4%. And about a small expenditure of 1% is for other things. So the general fund balance, so as of June 30th, 2019, our unassigned fund balance was $2,121,000. The restricted fund balances totaled $265,000. The operating capital was $26,000, and non-spendable was $25,884. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the district levy. So it's a 2019 payable 2020 levy. It affects the fiscal year 2021. So the authority for school levies, a school district levy must be either set by state formula or voter approved. Factors that can impact tax change, issues driven by legislative decisions such as the change in sales ratio, change in tax capacity rate structure, laws mandating code compliance such as LTFM, issues determined by district voters or a voter approved building bond issue, voter approved excess levy referendum, local factors, inflationary pressure on real estate market, abatements, property improvements not previously taxed, change in individual assessed market value, or possible change in property classification, such as going from a homestead to a rental unit. So for 2019 to 2020, we have a $724 per pupil unit. So the certified payable 18 pay 19 compared to what we're proposing of a 19 pay 20, the total difference in all funds is in the 18 pay 19 was $5,852,085. The 19 pay 20 is $5,882,091 for a difference of $30,000, which will only affect the taxpayers by about 0.51%. And the next few slides just show what our levies cover. So as you can see, we have local optional revenue. And all of those total $2,511,490. And that's, will come into the general fund. It's like, our OPEB, LTFM is $473,000. Health and safety is no more. There's achievement and integration levy, operating capital, equity, and so forth. So that's the general fund. Community service. In payable 2019, the total levy was $134,005, and for payable 2020, it'll be $134,772. The debt service, in payable 2019, it was $3,343,610, and for payable 2020, it'll be $3,235,838. However, our total levy increases by 0.51%, but our referendum market value increased by approximately 5.5%, and our net tax capacity increased by about 5.86%. So the levy statistics, if you're living in the Jordan School District, if you have a home value of $150,000, for the school district tax portion, you might see a decrease of by 4.38%, assuming that the taxable market value remained the same. If you have a $350,000 home, you might see a 4.52 decrease in your levy based on your home value. So pursuant to Minnesota statutes, the school board of the Jordan School District, Jordan, Minnesota, is authorized to make the following proposed tax levies. The maintenance or general fund is $2,511,480. Community service, $134,772. Debt service, $3,235,838, for a total proposed tax levy of $5,882,091. Now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Jordan School District, Jordan, Minnesota, that the levy to be levied in 2019 to be collected in 2020 is set at $5,882,091.17. The clerk of the Jordan School District School Board is authorized to certify the proposed levy to the county auditor of Scott County.
Which you'll take action on later on in the
Yep.
agenda.
Any questions?
Any questions for Amy? Nice job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9, discussion on referendum survey and support contracts.
At our previous board meeting, it was suggested that we look at some other options, at least for pricing and comparison. So we've got some pieces for you. We also included the previously discussed firms in school perceptions in Kraus Anderson. I'll skip to Daler, which is a firm that actually I reached out to last spring, and had asked them to provide us a proposal for this last year's bond and referendum, operating referendum, and how they could support us during the referendum piece. And you can see, I don't know if there's any questions on this. I'll just jump right to the cost. So approximately $28,000 for referendum services and an additional $5,000 for community engagement. So that would be the survey piece as well. So they offer survey, and obviously to help a school district provide marketing efforts during the referendum process to share the information with the public. That is, obviously there are many firms. I could have probably chose 50 and put them on here. We vetted some out that we didn't feel they were the right fit for the district. And this particular firm is very reputable. They worked in Watertown Mayor this past fall. With them the referendum. I think they can pick it up. I'll just kind of lean in closer.
Okay.
So highly reputable company. They do not do construction management services. So they're strictly a PR, communications, marketing firm for referendum. They do a survey component as well. Are there any questions about this particular firm?
Do you know anybody that used them?
Watertown Mayor did
Oh.
last year. A number of districts use them, so it's a very common firm. Then Baker Tilly, I think Lauren, you mentioned, bless you, Lauren, you mentioned, or maybe it was Sandy, Springstead. You've done a
Yes.
survey with Springstead?
Yes.
It's my understanding that Baker Tilly and Springstead have sort of merged.
Oh.
So, I just asked for some rough numbers here. They had reached out to me after the failed referendum as well. And, there's some samples included on here. But in terms of the financial piece, so if we don't do a full survey, so they do a random sampling, it'll be $4,500. Or excuse me, the post-election analysis cost $4,500 without a survey. If they do it with a survey, it's reduced to $3,000, but then you have to do the survey. So they do random sampling, as you can see. They gave us a similar district. They used 30 questions, random sampled 200 voters. The fee was $16,900. So if you add that plus the 3, so about 20 grand.
And the one that was here last week said they were gonna survey everybody, not just the sampling.
That's right.
And do you remember what that price was?
Depends on what you choose for options. I mean, it's sort of like an à la
Okay,
carte.
comparable to what's here.
Less
What's the
than
difference?
that.
It's less. Okay.
Seems to
About
me,
10,000.
Are you talking
Yeah.
about Kraus?
I'm
Yeah,
talking-
Kraus and
School
school
perceptions.
perceptions.
Yeah.
Perceptions.
Mhm.
Man, am I missing in P&G, the survey quote, or is that just kind of part of their comprehensive service?
I believe that's part of the community engagement, is the $5,000.
It's not real clear.
It's not real clear, but they did talk about a survey component. and
Sure.
I'm assuming that that's part of that community engagement. I know they're considerably more, and they are strictly, they're not gonna do any cost. Here's the disadvantage to this. You still have to do somebody's still gonna have to determine whether the cost estimates that we had are still valid. I think you still have to decide on a construction management firm, assuming a referendum passes. I mean, there's pros and cons. They're a standalone firm. It's a separate professional service.
That's where the school perceptions and Kraus-Anderson partnership comes in nice, because Kraus-Anderson could do those cost comparisons for it.
Yep, construction
Yes.
management
Yep.
firms as a whole, they're cost estimators. So they go in and look at, for example, every project has some sort of steel component. So they go in and they look at the price of steel. They do past project analysis. They look at market value changes, and they determine whether or not the estimating that the architect did for that piece of work is within the right ballpark.
Yeah, Lauren, as I add up there was 4 phases for school perceptions, I think it added up to 8,000, but that's not Kraus-Anderson, that was just.
I think there was like mailings and like,
Right, yeah,
Right, I
that
mean,
did
it's-
not cover the
Yeah.
soft costs, right,
Yeah.
but their phase costs were.
yeah. I mean, I
I guess
think
we'll open it up to discussion.
the real difference that I see in what I was impressed by the school perceptions proposal was just the opportunity for everybody in the district to have input into not, I mean, I think there may be an assumption that this survey is to figure out how to pass the next referendum, right? But what I saw there really was about what are your priorities for the district? What is, what's the balance between being taxed and receiving services, right? Nobody likes to pay taxes, right? Everybody likes to have services. And just I've heard, why don't you do a Survey Monkey, online, or call people at random. You're gonna miss people with a phone survey, especially in 2019. You're certainly gonna miss a demographic with an online Survey Monkey, right? That's gonna miss out probably an older demographic. And it's also gonna be more of somebody who is tuned in enough to be seeing the link being pushed out. I think it's great that this is mailed at every address, and then you have the option to either return it by mail or submit it online. And I think it's great that it's, comprehensive with enough questions for us to, really get a true picture of what the district is looking for, what the residents of the district is looking for.
I think that's a really good point, Ryan, and I like the point you made that the data that we would collect by doing the survey would not be just to see where we're gonna go with another referendum. I mean, that would be part of it, but I think the overarching thing is to get a real good flavor from the community about what they see and what they want in the way of the education piece for their kids and grandkids. So I think it's important that we look at the big picture of this survey. Connie?
I agree with what Ryan said, because I had numerous calls about people saying, well, we voted. You know how we feel. We know that you didn't pass the referendum, but we don't know how they feel. And we don't know unless they take the time to fill out the questionnaire. And by having the focus groups and having the questions formulated, I mean, not just to pass a referendum, we can't possibly know what they want. And so, also, in referring to the Survey Monkey, we don't necessarily know what questions even to ask without pulling all these people together and without people coming back to us saying, well, you're biased questions because you want to pass the referendum. If we have a neutral party help us, and again, they're going to come back and say, you're going to spend this much money that could be for the kids. All the money is for the kids. We're all working for the kids. And so if we can pull this together with the help of people that successfully have completed this, I think it's in the best interest of what we're all working for as the kids.
Sandy? I was just going to address some of the hubbub I've seen online, talking about how, why don't we have community forums and things like that? And we have had numerous community forums. And I'm a little confused how people did not know that. And so, I mean, and our superintendent went out to various, we didn't just hold those community forums. Our superintendent and other people also went out to various groups to educate people. And so people are saying, well, why don't you just do that? Well, they don't seem to work because we had very minimal turnout at those community forums. And so even giving free food, which someone suggested, is probably not going to help that scenario either. And so I think this is a much better way to try to get a pulse of the community, as opposed to having people come to us. This is going to them. So that's my thoughts.
Madam Chair, if I could just make a comment. Our district does not use professional services, on a daily basis. We do most of our work in-house with the professionals that have been hired. It is very common for school districts, cities, counties, whenever they have a project, whenever they have something that they need to get input on or feedback on, to engage professional services. And I think because it hasn't been practiced regularly to hire professional services, that it draws potentially some negative attention. I think that, coupled with the fact that, we did have a no vote on all 3 questions of our referendum, it probably is, and we're discussing budget reductions. I mean, they're all 3 of those things together, I think, elicit this type of response. But I would argue that in order for us to, move forward, recover, make sure that we are acting appropriately, pursuing the right things for our students, that we need to look at some professional services that really specialize in this. We don't. We can certainly create a survey, and if you direct me to create a survey, we'll do that to the best of our ability. But I'm not sure that it really satisfies our charge, I guess.
Well, I'd just like to point out too that this proposal for the PR firm for $33,000, that was basically done in-house, right? By a couple of people. I mean, as far as the mailings, the communications were put together in-house. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we look to do those things internally first.
And if you recall, as a board, I said to you last summer, traditionally, we haven't engaged the help of a outside firm, and that was when we were deciding whether or not to consider a group like Daler. And we obviously were successful with this particular building and more of that grassroots effort. Things have changed, and I think we need to understand how they've changed, why they've changed, and then what the feedback is and how we can, that engaging our constituency to figure out how we move forward. And I would argue, Connie, I know that somebody said people voted. Yeah, a certain small subset of people voted. I don't think that's representative of the majority. I'm not saying that the results would be different. I'm just saying that I don't think we heard from our whole population.
Tim,
When
did you?
I just think Kraus Anderson's proposal, some of that is we really do need a construction management company or somebody to do cost estimates. It's a lot to, an architect's gonna design it, but if we can't afford it off of just knowing the absolute, I mean, I think they can estimate an architect, but they can't fine tune that money down to what a project costs. So to have a construction management firm here that can get us within that last little bit is really helpful. Because to dream something up that we may not be able to have the funding for, it's nice to have them help reel that in the beginning. It's easier to reel it in as you go than it is to get it out there and then have to design build to hit budget numbers, in my opinion.
I think too, speaking to the operating levy, I mean, I don't have this in front of me now, but I believe it was 39 of 42 communities approved their voter operating levies,
Yep.
right? So for me, if we got nothing else out of a survey, I think it's just really important information to know whether it failed because of some of the other questions that were on the ballot, or if the community truly doesn't approve a voter operated levy, because that has significant implications on how you're gonna run a school district.
Chair.
Tom?
I think it's important to do the survey. I'm not for spending money on this type of thing, but I think we need to do the survey because we found out that on November 5th that the residents of Jordan did not want those specific 3 questions. But that doesn't negate the needs that we have. And a modest 2% increase in expenses this year puts us as having to cut over $400,000 worth of out of our budget, and that will affect students. No matter how we try to cut it or which direction we try to cut it, it will affect the students. And so it's not even the importance of just trying to get a referendum passed, it's trying to figure out on what cuts we make, which direction we go with those. If we're not up for a referendum now, when would the public want us to do a referendum? How would they want to see those cuts? And what amount would they want to see when that referendum is the case? Because we probably have a modest 2% increase in expenses this year. Well, that happens again next year, happen again the year after. And it's just becomes a bad situation for the entire district and for the students if we have to keep cutting year after year. So I am for some sort of a survey, so it'll help us with direction on which way to go for the district in the future.
I think our auditing firm made a really good point. Last year, and they always talking, or this year is what they said, but it was last school year, the 18-19 school year, we increased enrollment by around 70 kids. This year, we remained relatively flat. So you can get away with not having an operating levy in place if you have, 50, 60, 70 student per year growth, which we've experienced, pretty typically. It's either one of two things, because we don't have a voter-approved levy in place. We're either going to see a significant increase in state aid, or we're going to realize an increase in enrollment in which we can absorb most of that increase without hiring additional staff. And that's where we've been able to, for the most part, balance our budget over the last 5-6 years, is we've seen that steady increase. Plus, the legislature has provided, for the most part, 2% increases in aid. So whenever one of those two things stops, then you end up looking at alternative ways to balance the budget, which is where we are.
And the really challenging part of this whole thing is we're looking at, like Tom said, over 400,000 possibly in cuts. And what that does for people wanting to move to the community and people wanting to enroll, when they see us making cuts to programs or cuts to staff or increasing class size, it's going to deter them from wanting to make that decision to come here, which will just exacerbate our state per pupil WADM funding figure.
It creates a cycle.
It does.
A not good
It does.
cycle.
It does, we're under a tough position as an administration and district and board. And I know that we'll get a lot of criticism for making the decision to spend this money. But I think our backs are up against the wall. I think we need this professional advice and help to do this, to find out what the community truly wants. I believe in the past, this community has really supported, as evidenced by passage of, our other referendums over the years. And they've supported education in this community. And we have to find out what went wrong.
Agreed.
I think the other part of it too is it helps you provide some education to people, because I've heard so many stories, mistruths. Again, it's trying to figure out how to get the information out to people, because obviously methods have evolved since passage of this particular bond and the trust that was there. So nothing has changed in terms of our operation, but I think the methods in which people receive their information has changed, and we have to figure out what that looks like and figure out what people want to know more about, because I've certainly since November 5th I've heard many stories of things that are just completely false. And it's just how do we share, how do we get, because I felt like we did, but it just, the methods have changed so much.
I guess I should add, I'm sorry, I should just go back to what I said about the town hall kind of things. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm saying it's not how we're going to get this kind of information. I think that if we do run another referendum, that we need to try to do various avenues, some of which may include town halls, but it's not going to get us the information that we need right now.
In any forum tends to attract people that either can make it
Yes.
because they're not working 2 jobs or whatever. It also tends to attract people with the strongest positive.
Yep, and the strongest
And the
negatives.
strongest negative on a particular issue. And to me, this gives us the opportunity to really understand what the entire voting body of the district is thinking. It was also an eye-opener. As a newcomer, I've heard people talk about fund balance and $2 million. It sounds like a lot of money. It's kind of an eye-opener when you put that against the expenses and you realize that it's less than a month of operating expenses. Certainly changed my outlook tonight when I heard that on what that fund balance means.
It was an eye-opener for me to hear 25% was the average. I guess I did not realize that.
I
And
know, that was.
That kind of makes me, it makes me very nervous that we don't have anywhere close to that.
There was and I'm not gonna say the district, but there's a district in the Southwest Metro, our Southwest Metro school district, intermediate school district, that had over a 35% fund balance, and they ran an operating levy. That's true.
Wow.
And it passed. If we're talking about the same one.
Mhm.
Well, I think this is not an action item tonight, but I think maybe you want more direction and a discussion on the,
Well, I think if there's a
Bids, though.
particular area that you want me to go, then I have to look at some contracts and things like that and prepare those or get those drafts ready to go for January.
Can we do just the survey through school perceptions or whoever it is and not do all the other stuff? We just want the survey, we want to identify what it says, and then we can make some choices at that point.
Say that again.
So we just do the survey part, not what Kraus Anderson with the construction management stuff at this time, but we just do the survey. So we try to find
Right.
out what we need to find out and decide if it's time to move ahead, what kind of money we need to do to move ahead, and then we can, once we get that information, then we can move forward with some of the other steps.
That makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because we don't want to also, we don't know what the results of the survey are going to be,
Right.
right? And based on the information we get from that, I think we're going to make decisions on what and when,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, if people come back and say, well, we don't want it in the fall of 2020, but hit me up April of 2021, or I don't know, what it's gonna say, that might be a big difference.
Does that affect anything on administrative?
Can I say something? I think if I looked at the proposal, right, Kraus Anderson, we don't pay them unless something passes.
Right. They don't
So
charge
the
us.
question would be do you want to do the survey right away, or do you want to involve a facility task force? I worry if you go out for a survey and you say, how much will you support? If that was coming from my district, I probably wouldn't support anything unless I knew that there was a couple options that people were thinking about. That's just my gut feeling. So do you not do the survey right this minute? You take a month or two, you put together a facility committee, hopefully you get 30, 40 people, and you kind of lay out a couple directions to go, and then you do a survey so there's something behind what you're asking people to support. I'm just throwing that out there because really there's no money for Kraus Anderson unless something passes. And I believe they even cover the survey cost, or am I wrong?
No,
with that?
they don't.
No, they don't. But I just worry that if you do the survey right out of the box, what if it comes back and people say, we want nothing?
Yep.
We don't want to spend a dime because you have no plan. Or that's how they're going to see it. I'm not saying we don't have a plan, but if you do a survey, you engage 40, 50 people. They get out to another 40, 50 people, and they say, the district's looking at these 5 options.
So what
What would you
I'm gonna stop
do?
you for a second, because I think this is the reason why we consider hiring professional consultants, because I want them to say,
What
this
we
is
should
what
do.
our next steps are. And my understanding, just in the conversation that I had up at the Duluth conference where I attended, where they both presented together, was that Kraus Anderson as a firm works with your architect, your stakeholders, and the survey company to design the questions that then they will go out and ask the public. So to me, there is a little bit of a fit there. Doesn't mean you can't do a separate survey. I mean, it's possible. But I'm saying that there might be, as Tim was stating, there's potential for some additional value there by having them work in tandem. And as Tim said, there's no risk unless we move forward with a referendum. So ultimately, the decisions move forward, and then the risk is an $8,000 risk, regardless of whether it passes or not. And then the remaining part is part of the contract, the construction management contract, should the referendum pass.
And I think if you do a facility task force and up front and you look at some options, I think you have to have somebody who can cost estimate at that table to at least say, yep, this fits in what, because it'll be a group that would say, well, the public might support, let's say, $30 a month. What if what comes out of that task force is $60 a month in referendum? You need somebody to rein that in and say, you know, this path is going too high to keep it into what, I mean, there's gonna be a parameter there where you're gonna feel comfortable with what the public will support. So to try to stay in that parameter through the process, to me, is worth doing.
So are we looking for us to decide right now that we're doing a survey and who the company is? Because I think we're all in consensus that we feel that a survey is needed. So do you need more direction from us?
No, if you want, I just need to know what firm you would like me to work with. If you want more,
Are you willing to go, do you want us to explore Kraus Anderson with school specialty and maybe have them come back and say, or have a talk session
We're
to
not
say what
making
you're
a
doing?
decision tonight, but we're just, they provided, you know, the different other survey companies just for us to read through their stuff and.
I went through this stuff pretty thoroughly, as well as just their websites and stuff like that. I lean towards school perceptions myself, the one that actually presented last time, that,
Other than the fact that she talked way too long. I liked the format of everything she presented, the layout and the, yeah, the design and everything, so.
I did too. I was fine with that layout and design. The concept and them working together, I thought was very thorough and would benefit us as a district.
okay.
do we, I know this isn't directly to do with this, but are we in January gonna look at setting up some dates to go through, get facilities committees together, do some of this stuff, the next steps? Or are you looking for one of these guys to kind of lead that? Okay. I mean, it's, we can't get it now. No one's focused
I
on
mean, I
anything
could,
like that.
I
but
could make up a
January-
process, but it might not follow the particular
looking for.
process,
Okay.
what they
Yeah.
feel is,
Sure.
they're gonna
Yeah.
provide to us as a
Your
professional
time is
consultant.
probably more valuable elsewhere, and if we're gonna hire somebody to do it, we might as well take their expertise and run with it, I think.
Yeah.
So this will eventually have to be an action item though, of whoever we decide, so we might.
January.
So why are we delaying, I guess is my question. I mean, I see the survey as twofold. I see it, one, as helping with prioritization, and then I also see it as preparation for whatever comes kind of in summer and next fall. And if we decided that the group makes sense, that the scope is reasonable and that the fee is reasonable, is there benefit of delaying, or should we get the process going?
I don't know if we can, I don't think so, once the agenda is set. I'm not sure.
I mean, can we just direct Matt to, I mean,
Can we just say we want to go?
It's within the threshold, so you could
That would
direct
be
me
your
to just,
way to go on
to
it.
go through the process.
I don't think we necessarily need to belabor it if we're all in
Yeah.
consensus. And then just let you guys work out the details.
Correct, Amy? It's within the threshold that the board doesn't
The
necessarily.
concern is that it wasn't on the agenda and it wasn't posted as the agenda, so to create it
it's
as an
not-
action item right now would not work.
Right.
that's fine, but I think it's within Matt's authority to
But if
go
it's within
negotiate a
that,
contract,
right.
and if it needs to come back for board approval, that can
Approval,
come
then
back
we
as an
can do
action
it.
item. I just,
Yeah.
Yes.
to Rob's point, I don't know that we wanna,
Still keep
like,
delaying, yeah.
discuss this without some guidance to move the
Yeah.
process forward. I mean, you know, cause if we're motivated to do something in 2020, it's like 10 months away, right? And so I'm hearing, I mean, we need to understand that timeline too, if that's an
Okay.
option.
So just to repeat, I'm hearing that the board is in support of moving forward with allowing Matt to work with school perceptions and Kraus Anderson and get the process going. for a survey.
In January, we can have it on the agenda for the action item.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
okay, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, then we have a lot of consent agenda items. We have the minutes, monthly finance reports from November, I believe. Donations, we have Bruce Coghill of flute and sheet music. Mighty Cause Food Shelf, $45. AT&T Athletic Department donation, $125. An anonymous donation to the athletic department, $100. Stacy Shalupski for the 7th grade, a $50 donation, and Hopetown Bank Food for Friends donation of $400. We have renewal of all of the fall coaches, approval of the student dress and appearance. It's the first and final reading. There was no changes to that policy. We have a leave request for Jennifer St. John, a new hire, Aaron Garath, for boys basketball 7th grade coach, numbers warranted adding a coach. New hire for boys basketball 8th grade coach, Jason Way. New hire homebound instructor, Dorothy Lewis, for a homebound student. And employee FTE change of 1.0 to 7.9, that's Tracy Eddington. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Sandy, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ryan, discussion?
I had one question.
Yep.
For the contract renewal for the high school fall play, next year will be a musical. I don't know if that impacts anything, if that's a higher, I don't know if that's a different contract. I just was asking the question. Because the next year will be a musical, not a play.
I don't think that,
I think it is a different contract amount. Not 100%
I-
sure, but
I think it is.
does it really matter though? I mean, we're approving the high
Just
school
renewing.
fall play. Does it matter if it's a
I don't
musical or
know that,
not?
I'm asking the question. That's why I just wanted to bring that up.
I think as long as we're approving the fall play, no matter what it is, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Action items, review and act on the auditor's report. You all heard the report earlier.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion by Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Lauren. Discussion? I just want to thank Amy and her team for
Yes.
doing a good job with the auditors and working with them. I know it's a crunch time for you in the office, so appreciate that.
It was a good year.
Good. Any other comments on the audit? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the audit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Review and act on the levy approval. This is a resolution. And pull that up, Matt.
Sure.
And we are asking to approve the full amount. Where are we here?
The levy amount is $5,882,091
and 17 cents.
and 17 cents. Can't forget about that.
So we're just approving the levy to the max. So
Yes.
I will entertain a motion.
Which overall was only an increase of 0.51%.
Yes. What was that again?
0.51%.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Sandy, second? Anyone?
Second.
Connie, discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Deb Pauly?
Yes.
Tom Vogel?
Yes.
Sandy Burke?
Yes.
Tanya Pennon?
Yes.
Lauren Anderson?
Yes.
Rob Langheim?
Yes.
Ryan Daner?
Yes.
Motion carries. Review and act on the world's best workforce plan. Dr. Yamlin.
Aaron, do you want me to bring up the timeline or the plan?
We'll do the timeline first.
Okay.
So for World's Best Workforce, this is the timeline for implementation that will happen starting next year. So this is new procedure in place so that we hit all of the required elements and make goals that are workable so we can use them for this school year. So the first one is at the summer data retreat. the data team will set the goals for the upcoming year based on the data from the previous years. And then once they've determined those goals, step 2 is I'll write the draft for it. That'll happen August or September, the draft of the entire World's Best Workforce Plan. And then step 3, then it'll go to the Curriculum and Advisory Council for the October meeting for any revisions after that for the new plan. And then from now on, it'll be presented at the school board in November in the year instead of December. And then after it's been approved by the school board, then the website will be updated. And then a progress report on the previous year's plan is submitted by December 15th. So how it works is you have your plan that has to be published on your website for this year it'd be the 2019-2020 school year. So that's what's up there now. And then on December 15th, you have to submit a progress report from the previous year, so 18-19 plan. So that last piece kind of feels backwards, but because it's not necessarily the current one, but it has to fit the deadline for. And then achievement integration is also a part of that too. So this is how it'll happen moving forward. And then this is this year's plan. So these are the areas, there's 5 areas that the goals have to be created. And this should also be linked to the district strategic plan. All children are ready for school. All 3rd graders can read at grade level. All racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed. All students are ready for career in college, and all students graduate from high school. So those are the areas where our goals have to be created. So there's not any wiggle room for there. So our Jordan Elementary, this is our goal for this year, is at least 51% of kindergarten students will score at or near proficiency for kindergarten readiness skills in math and reading based on DIBELS 8 on the spring 2020. The next piece are just the action steps to make sure that we can achieve that. So what we're doing as a district to make sure that we achieve, hopefully, our goal, that PK vertical alignment, reinforce kindergarten readiness, continue our Kickstart to kindergarten programming, continue to develop that birth to kindergarten opportunities like ECFE for parent involvement, and continuous screenings to assess incoming kindergarten readiness. The next section is all 3rd graders can read at 3rd grade. So our goal is at least 65% of 3rd graders will meet or exceed proficiency on the reading MCAs in the spring of 2020. And again, continue to implement and support best practice and balanced literacy. Continue implementing strong MTSS Tier 1, 2, and 3 instruction. Continue K-12 curriculum alignment and development. Reinforcing standards-based instruction and all those staff development initiatives. And continue implementing cultural responsive teaching strategies. Then as a district, this one is a little bit more ambiguous on how other districts write this plan, but we kind of have 2 goals in this area, reading and math, but they are the same goal. The district will decrease the average achievement gap between free and reduced price lunch and not free and reduced price lunch by 10% based on spring MCA testing, and it's the same goal for math. Our current achievement gap for reading is about 19% and math about 22.5%. Based on free and reduced price lunches. So our action steps, again, especially for this goal, strengthening that multi-tiered system of support is crucial. Continue district-wide focus on student engagement through inquiry and project-based learning, reinforce K-12 focus on culturally responsive teaching, and then reinforce the K-12 standards-based instruction. Then high school, all students are ready for career in college. At least 40% of students in grade 10 will score at or above proficiency, which is about a score of 22, on the pre-ACT assessment in the fall of 2018. And our action steps continue offering and strengthening opportunities for students to earn higher education credits in schools, implement personalized learning plans, grades 7 through 12, and that's starting this year. Strengthen ramp up to readiness programming during advisory time, 9-12, and include in that ACT preparation curriculum. Strengthen freshman focus programming geared toward future planning and post-secondary readiness, and expand career and post-secondary focus learning experiences. And lastly, all students will graduate from high school. Our goal is Jordan will remain above 90% in the 4-year graduation rate cohort model for the 2019-20 school year based on state AYP report. And again, continue to strengthen the CIS, CE, Summit Academy offerings aimed at engaging students in the district through graduation. Implementing those personalized learning plans, 7 through 12, to focus on that progress and goal planning. Strengthen MTSS, RTI, SAIL interventions with our struggling learners. Reinforce the high quality standards-based instruction and to continue implementing high quality course offerings and authentic learning opportunities so that our students engage in the class. So these are our goal areas. The next section of the plan is teacher equity. And this is just ensuring that all students have highly qualified teachers. So the plan, every year it changes a little bit, but based on last year's, here are some of the questions, like how are we making sure that we have teachers that look like our students, either economically, culturally, ethnicity, whatever the parameters are, and how are we making sure that our teachers are highly qualified. So for our teacher development plan, we have the formal reviews that the principals do. If you're not tenured, it's 3 a year. And then we have the peer review process for tenured teachers. And then there's also, even if you are tenured, you're on a rotation for a formal review as well. And the biggest issue is trying to, what strategies have the district initiated to hire teachers of different ethnicities and backgrounds so that can mimic our student body, and really looking at a ton of other plans. It's just the workforce, really the people who are applying, so just continually to make sure that we, recruit and publicize our openings. And then also, I think the Summit Academy with Intro to Education and the follow-up multicultural education course to try to have students of all backgrounds join that course and hopefully keep them in education is definitely a goal. Then the next piece is professional development. So this is just, if you scroll down, this is just kind of our framework and what we're doing, how we're focusing our goals. So again, this year we're really focusing on that curriculum focus with standards-based instruction. Next year, really honing in on the best practices, and then structure. Best practices, I mean, we can be there for years and years and years, and that's the goal once we get our curriculum aligned, to keep focusing on best practice and looking at structure down the road. And then the last piece is the annual report and public meeting. So this is a public meeting, but then also the Curriculum and Technology Advisory Council, where all these curriculum changes, professional development, and getting that feedback from the community, and this is a big piece of that. So that was a very quick overview of the plan. Questions? And it is the current plan is all published on the website, too.
You're very thorough.
I am thorough, yeah. Okay?
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you very
Great
much,
job. Thank you.
Erin. You have your work cut out for you. Sandy?
I was, nothing.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Erin.
Surprised I'm not on there. Since I'm on it.
Okay, this is an action item, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the World's Best Workforce Plan.
I just thought that was odd.
Motion to approve?
Tom, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Rob, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, review and act on the paraprofessional contract.
So this is the settlement tutorial for that particular group. Our negotiators were involved in the process, which includes Ryan, Tom, Deb, and myself, as well as Amy and Katie. The rate schedule changes, we were at 15 steps. There was a request to go up to 20 in exchange for removing the longevity language. There was a caveat there, so employees currently eligible for longevity during the 2019 through 2021 contract period will continue to receive that longevity at their current longevity per hour rate. And then at the end of that contract cycle, the longevity eligibility will sunset due to the adding of the 5 additional steps. So by lengthening the contract stepwise. Essentially, we as a district agreed, or as the district negotiators agreed, in exchange for eliminating the longevity pay, which is an additional $1 per hour or dollar amount per hour. Does that make sense, everybody? In terms of improving the schedule, the agreement was 1.25% in the first year of the agreement with step increases, and then 1% in year 2 with the step increases. And we have a Schedule A and a Schedule B. The reason why is when the Affordable Care Act came in, the district was paying a cash in lieu amount for insurance. And instead of taking that amount away, we put that on the salary schedule, and that became Schedule B. Everybody that was hired after that date became Schedule A. Well, in theory, we thought that was just a great idea. Turns out it causes a little bit of a gap. So we're moving away from having a Schedule A and a Schedule B to having one schedule. And we're phasing it in over a period of 4 years. So this is the 3rd and 4th years of that phase-in. Personal day pay, increased personal day pay from minimum wage to $110 a day. That's consistent with what it says in other contracts. Wellness pay, the same. Basically, we didn't agree to changes there. So that was what was requested, and we didn't agree to any changes there. Insurance increases, you can see, I don't need to read them directly for you, but you can see the difference in terms of increasing the amounts there. And the reason why we increased those amounts were to match the amount that we'd have to pay for a penalty on the exchange for that health insurance associated with the Affordable Care Act. Last contract cycle, we put in that paraprofessionals could earn changes in their lane. They received a stipend as they improved on they received CEUs. This adds in a minimum threshold of having at least a B on that coursework in order to get that change. We're still okay with it. Obviously, we want people to better themselves, but we just feel like there has to be a minimum threshold, and that's very similar to the teacher contract. The other piece related to that was education allowance dollars, which they've had in their contract since I've been here and longer. They may not they can't purchase a subscription to there's a company called Hoodoo-It, and you can't use that money in the contract to purchase that subscription and then turn around and use that for lane advancements with the CEUs. Can't double dip. So those were the language pieces.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 paraprofessional contract.
So moved.
Connie, is there a second?
Second.
Sandy, discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Review and act on the activities director contract.
I'm going to ask the board to consider postponing this definitely due to my error. I got a late email on Friday from Mr. Perkle asking for me to go to the board negotiators with a request, and I failed to do that. I lost track of it, and I apologize to Mr. Perkle and to you as board negotiators, so I would suggest postponing that definitely to January so we can have that conversation, to be fair to Mr.
Okay.
Perkle.
Can I have a motion to postpone this definitely to the January 6th meeting? So I believe it's the 6th, right?
Yes.
Okay, Rob?
Lauren, second.
Lauren seconds. Is there a motion? I mean, all those in, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 11.7, review and act on equity and outreach specialist contract.
This is a one-year contract for Mr. Malik Peer, and it is a 4% increase in his rate of pay. Increase the insurance contribution of $200, increase from 1 to 2 personal days, and then allow him to go out and serve as a consultant for other school districts and provide that area expertise. Obviously with some parameters.
Being such as that he can't do it on our clock time, he has to do it.
Unless he's been granted
Yeah.
specific permission.
Okay.
And he is, if I could explain a little bit further, he is getting a particular certificate in equity. That is the reason for the one-year contract. Is we want to evaluate that after he's completed that.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Rob, is there a second?
Second.
Connie, okay, questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Review and act on adding 6th grade to the wrestling program.
Thanks for your patience, Mr. Perkle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks
You
for
got
hearing
quite
me
a-
out one more time on these 6th graders. I think last month I had mentioned, but Minnesota River Conference had a very short discussion last month at their AD conference, or at their AD meeting. Not very happy that Jordan ran 6th graders in our cross-country meet, conference championship cross-country meet. So they added language to the handbook to say 7th through 12th grade participation only in the MRC. This is the opposite in the Wright County Conference. Last Wednesday, I was at the Wright County Conference AD meeting, and we spent over an hour going sport by sport on which sports we thought would be good to add 6th grade participation. And we didn't officially vote on it. It'll go to the executive level. Matt and I are not voting members this year. We will next year, but it seems really promising. The two that we've already had the conversation here on, golf and cross country, we're involved in that, including wrestling, track, and tennis. Were all activities we looked at as being positive options for 6th graders. This should not cost our district a penny because we will get registration fees from 6th graders. We already have middle school coaches in place. They'll ride the same buses that are going to the same destinations as our other teams. The big thing is our high school coaches cannot work with those 6th graders. And really, they shouldn't be working with the 7th and 8th graders that aren't part of the high school program anyway. So I'm here to talk about wrestling today, and then hopefully sometime down the line I will provide another action item with both tennis and track, but don't plan on doing that for this year. So this is for wrestling for this year. We have our meeting tonight. Belle Plaine has theirs next week. They are having this at their school board meeting next week as well. They're in a little different situation. Obviously, we are the host site, so our 6th graders are right down the hall. They can walk right into the wrestling room. Belle Plaine has a junior high system. Their 6th graders aren't in the building. They have to do a separate type of busing, or they have to provide their own transportation. That's kind of their deal. For what we're talking about today, we're talking about Jordan 6th graders being able to participate in the Scott West wrestling program, except for the MRC meet.
Joe, can you talk a little bit about past, I think you have it in your summary, but the past history with 5th and 6th grade participation?
Yeah, and it sounds like this predates both Matt and I, that 5th and 6th graders have been kind of allowed to roll around in the wrestling room for years. Something that I didn't catch until our first day here. I walked into the room, saw a bunch of little baby faces looking up at me that were not on the roster, and told them they had to go. Had some parents that were not happy about that because this has kind of been a long-standing thing that Coach Ripley and Scott West has had happening. Obviously, from a liability standpoint, every parent that I talked to, they understood why we had to go this route to have it officially board approved before we allow them to join the after-school middle school program. They do have Panther Cubs, which they are still participating in. This just gives them one more layer. It also provides us that competitive advantage at 7th grade. A lot of 7th graders, at 106, the lowest weight class, typically you can only find a 7th or 8th grader to fill that weight spot. So adding 6th graders gives those kids a year in the room, potentially ready to jump from middle school to varsity that next year as a 7th grader. Same thing, I think we've got some cross-country parents on the board, see the same thing with our 6th graders. They get to run, they get to train, and then boom, a lot of times 7th, 8th, 9th grade is that peak age to really run your best, and they're already a year ahead of some of our other schools that we compete with.
And if I'm not mistaken, at the Wyzetta meet the other night, both 8th graders with those lowest 2 weight classes won their matches.
They did, and they had a
which
good
helped us.
weekend as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it gives us a great advantage. It's not going to affect us negatively financially in any way. If anything, we'll gain their registration. We're not hiring an additional coach. So it's a good thing from the way I see it. It's a good thing all around to add those 6th graders to the wrestling program.
Great. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Tom, is there a second? Connie? Okay, questions for Jim? Joe?
Any others this year that you see coming down this year?
No, the only other two, and we'd wait on it, but Wright County Conference, once that officially goes into motion and that happens, then the two that we have not approved on our side would be track and tennis. Tennis is a fall sport. Track, I just don't see us doing that this year being in the MRC. We would have a tough time. It would be very developmental. They wouldn't be able to have any competitions. So this would be a 2021 initiative for those other two.
For the Wright Conference.
Yeah, yep.
They don't do it for soccer.
No, well, we'd have to have enough to have a middle school level to start with, but if we got to that point, we could consider it. But yeah, the Wright County Conference didn't talk 6th graders for soccer, yeah. Yep.
Great.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Did we vote? No, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, on to board and administrative reports. Superintendent.
I'll try to keep this
Mr. Helgerson.
brief. Hope prepares a really
Thanks,
nice open enrollment report every year, and it's ready to go, and it's attached for you. Just overall, if you look at the numbers that exist on that report, you'll see that between 2018-19, we saw a jump of about 30 open enrolled students and a jump of open enrolled students out of 10. So open enrolled in about 30 plus, open enrolled out about 10 minus. So a net gain of 20 students in that open enrollment piece. So that really kind of fits the profile of that high migration in that our demographer said that we typically see in our district. If you do add in the non-public, St. John's, so non-public is a specific category, St. John's, just looking at that specific school, and homeschool, we lose 417 residents while we bring in about 192 residents. So the corresponding report shares all that detail with you and shows you where those students are gained from or go out to. The enrollment update for December 1st, just our monthly update, we actually sit at 1,890 students, which is 7 more than our November check, and 22 students less than our what-if budget count. So we're creeping closer to what we budgeted, and the December 1 count has 2 more K-4 students, 2 more 5-8 students, and 3 more 9-12. So that's where the breakdown comes from.
Could I ask a question? Do we ever survey why the outgoing ones, why they go? Do we do it yearly, every 2 years, every 3 years?
I've never done it.
Do we care? I mean, we care, but do we want to know that?
I mean, the form does ask now. They don't have to provide a reason, but they can.
Okay.
I think if I look at who's moving out, it's either they're so close to the district boundary in some of them. So for instance, Spring Lake Circle out,
Yes.
basically on the very south end of Prior Lake is Jordan School District.
Mhm.
If your neighbors right across the street goes to Prior Lake
Then
and
you
you're
go.
coming to Jordan, you know, or your kid's coming up, you may go that way, or you may go the other way. And I know there are a couple that are in that area, because we're
Mhm.
kind of that area. And then I know a couple of them with specific
Hockey or
things.
sports specifically? Okay.
Yeah.
I
But
just
I know
thought
too, I
maybe
know a
we
couple of
should-
them that work out where we are, out on the Mystic campus that they live in Belle Plaine and they drive their kids and drop them off in Jordan on their way to work.
I guess I would ask, what do we want to come out of that?
Yeah.
Well, I just thought maybe we would want to know.
If there's something we could offer.
Yeah.
Right. What are we not offering? You're in our district, you can get
Mhm.
transportation from our district. What are we not offering that is causing you to go to
Mhm.
Prior Lake? Is it, because does Prior Lake run a bus through there? I look
Mhm.
in that
They
neighborhood all
do.
the time.
They do.
Always make sure
Yeah.
it is Jordan.
They do run a bus through there?
Yeah, because it's Jordan School District, so it's literally the inside of
We run buses in the Prior Lake.
and we do too.
so-
It's like the inside of the circle is Jordan, the outside's Prior Lake, I think it is something like
They
that,
probably
so
pass each
their,
other.
their buses probably pass each other, truly.
And we've had a stop at where the Friendship Church is
Yeah.
in Prior Lake there before, in years past, so.
Mhm.
Really?
I just was curious.
Is that our boundary?
No, we
No,
we have it
that's
like a
Spring Lake's
community
the town.
stop, so Prior Lake residents, if they, open and roll in, we provide that as like the stop. And then people can drive their kids to that location.
Well, there
and we
must be
bus them in.
one by Hartman, what used to be called Hartman Horse Farm, because when I go past, there's like 6 cars lined up
Yep.
there in the morning waiting
We have
for
one
the
in
bus.
Carver. I mean, we typically provide, a community stop in our neighboring school districts.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
It's
that.
a common practice we don't literally drive down Main Street to pick up kids from, but, if we get enough, we don't initiate it, we don't say, oh, hey, we're gonna have a community stop here. It's if students have already open enrolled in. A lot of times they want transportation services. We'll take that route bus that's as close to there as possible, and we'll add an additional community stop to pick that group up.
I did not know that.
What is the other category? Is that just kind of a
Other school
smattering?
districts?
Yeah, some
Yeah,
that just had
smattering.
a couple kids, so it doesn't pay to list them all.
Right. I guess I'm just kind of curious of the high number.
60 hours.
Because it seems like it's a wash where on the Belle Plaine side, we're getting a disproportionate number in versus out. We lose that then on the Prior Lake Savage side. And then on the other side, that's where we see a significant number that are out.
Yeah, the others are really pretty bad.
It's also kind of interesting.
I don't know, is that the no, that's not, would that be
intermediate or
intermediate?
What else is in there? Hope I don't.
Yep, they would be there. A lot of charter and online schools are in the other.
Oh, sure.
But
Sure.
intermediate is too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, the charter that's boarded by Prior Lake Rental,
Lerner,
Sure.
that'd be one,
Aspen.
yeah.
Aspen
Do we track
Academy.
homeschools too?
Yep.
It's right here.
Is that in the other as well? Or am I missing it?
No,
It's
that's
on the
down
bottom.
here.
Oh, thank you. Wow,
71,
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I think though that's just kind of a trend that's going on right now. I mean,
Mhm.
kind of independent of our district.
My nieces live in niece and nephews live in Eden Prairie. They homeschool all of their kids through, did not go to Eden Prairie or anything. They homeschool them.
I actually think I was encouraged by the report, because I think we're closing it's
Closing the
slow.
gap.
Yeah,
We're closing
no, I
the gap.
agree.
Anything as Hope said, anything before 17, 18, really, I wouldn't put too much stock into those numbers, because
Yeah.
they just weren't real well tracked.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good table. That's a good slide.
Okay, so other pieces of the report. So I submitted 2 articles for the Jordan Journalist. They'll appear with the Community Ed catalog. I attached those for your review. I won't read them, but attach those for your review. One of them is related to the post-referendum. The other is more of a fall wrap-up by program or by building. And then this was addressed in the audit presentation. I won't dive too deep into it, other than to mention that I too have heard the concern that our district has more administration than it should, quote unquote. I think the only way to address a concern like that is through data. I've been here, this is my 7th audit. I believe it's my 7th audit. In all 7 audits, the audit report that we heard tonight has been nearly identical. We spend less than districts our size and less than the state average on administrative costs, and more on regular instruction than districts our size and more than the state average. And as people who attended our referendum presentations heard me say, that's how it should be. We're proud of that. We work really hard to service our kids. You know, this last year, the teachers on special assignment, which are instructional coaches, they are teachers. They're paid as teachers. They are not administrators. That was done in lieu of looking at a dean of students model, which would have been considered additional administrators. Our principals literally said we would, as we remember in the retreat, we would rather have the instructional help on the instructional side, making sure that students have the best quality instructors in front of them, and that was a concession rather than to get some help with discipline or whatever it might be from an administrative level. So we've taken the route of attacking it that way versus, you know, trying to engage kids in the classroom versus having, you know, typically when you have behavioral concerns, it's when kids aren't engaged. So we've kind of attacked it that way versus a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. And then I've also dug a little deeper on my own, and I've looked at, I sent out just a survey template that I created to, you know, districts of similar size, so they're within that 1,500 to 2,500 student range. And I've only received 3, as the time when I wrote this, only received 3 full reports. And even those were really difficult. They weren't a complete apples to apples. But I did analyze the salaries that they provided and the average cost among the schools, including ours, including Jordan, so we're included in the 4 that have submitted, was $1,472,226 spent on administration. Jordan's total costs were $1,379,092, which is nearly $100,000 less than the average for those 4 districts. And that, like I mentioned, that did not include some other costs that we have that they didn't report, such as like a food service director. You know, some of those districts contract out for that service. Another common one is special services director. A lot of districts contract out for that service too. So there is a cost there. They didn't report any in the survey. I asked for it, but they didn't report any. That's only going to drive that average up even higher.
That seems to mirror kind of what the audit report said
Yeah.
tonight as well.
Yep, it does. And, you know, it's what auditors count as administration. You know, I just wanted
Yeah.
to see if there was a correlation there. And I just basically counted everybody that has principal, superintendent, or director title as administration, and asked these schools, these like schools, to do similar task.
So does our number include the food service and where the other number doesn't?
Correct.
So there's actually a bigger
Greater
gap.
discrepancy.
Bigger-
We're being
Yeah.
more conservative.
Exactly.
And the biggest, bless you, the biggest thing that I see, just in those, the ones that have come back, is districts have assistant principals, we don't.
Yeah.
So most districts, and then some districts also break down and have like a pre-K2 building and then a 3, 4, 5 building, and they have a principal for each. So you think about our model, and our campus is very efficient in that way. We have 1 principal per building. We don't have any assistants. We have 1 dean of students, and then 1 superintendent. I mean, really, that's the upper level administration support, whereas most districts that I've seen, you know, again, out of the 4, and then even some that have sort of partially reported, they have principals, assistant principals, and/or deans. So, as I get more data, I'll provide that information in our data retreat book. And then finally, just some reminders, the leadership conference and our admin retreat. The leadership conference is Thursday the 16th and Friday the 17th. and our admin retreat. We've decided on the 6th of January, so we'll be doing our organizational meeting first, and then going into our retreat session. And then the second or the fourth Monday, which would be January 27th, is in place of our workshop meeting. That'll be second night of our retreat. So as reminders. Are there any other questions? Anything that I should?
We're all gonna come home back from that MSBA meeting, all excited and all gung-ho and ready to go, and we're gonna have to make cuts. It's such a bummer, because you come back from that just so like refreshed and with all these great things that you had seen at that conference, and then we're gonna make cuts.
Yeah. You're right.
Of course, Matt, though, you know we're gonna come back and say, hey, can we do this? Can you work your magic and make this work?
Out of magic.
Okay. High school principals report. I have a tickle. Anything to note in that? Middle school principals report. Elementary principals report. I know their celebration of learning was delayed or postponed because of the
and I
snowstorm.
can't
It's
go
what,
to it.
week from Friday, I think it is?
I think it's this Friday.
It's this
Is it
Friday, I
this
think.
Friday?
Yeah, and I can't go to it. I'm really bummed. Because I have a site visit.
Director of Teaching and Learning. Nothing there. Activities Director's report. Community Ad and Rec Director's report.
I have a question, I don't know that you can answer it, Matt, though, but is he gonna do a recap of, like, in the fall, we had these activities, what our participation was, what ran, what didn't ran? You know, can we see how our community ed offerings are coming to play, and if they're
Sure, I can ask him.
successful?
Yeah, I can ask him to do that.
Thanks.
Maybe you can do that as part of the
Part of a
retreat.
retreat.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That would actually be nice for athletics,
I think he
too,
already has
and
the data,
activities.
so I don't think it's a big deal to run that report, so.
Athletics and activities would be nice to see the trend too, with how participation is going, and
For sure.
is it increasing, is it decreasing?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Communication Marketing, Kat's report. Nutritional Services Director's report.
Quick question. It kind of goes back to the high school report, but it kind of talks about probably throughout a few of these. For some of these different presentations that we're having kind of on an annual basis, so like the courageous parenting, the suicide prevention talk, are we recording those, or do we have the capability of recording those and then potentially putting them on the website, so for people who cannot necessarily make it for whatever reason, have access to that resource?
We haven't been recording. I don't know the reasons for or not to record, so I'd have to.
Or just something to potentially think
To
about.
ask
If there's a,
or text
if there's
staff
not
on how they
necessarily a
might be able to
cost.
do that.
I know that they've been asked, and two things I've heard is, one, they don't allow themselves to be taped.
Some of it might
Some
be
of
better,
them.
yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And the other
Like the
one,
top
there was
secret
somebody
one?
really good that they had, and somebody asked to have it recorded, and they said that the equipment wasn't good enough to do a good recording, so.
Oh, the
That's what they were
concerts come across really good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Some things I know some of them, that's how they make their money,
Right.
going
Yeah.
out.
Right.
And
Well,
they don't
and
want
I guess
us.
I'm wondering if like and maybe it's not necessarily even ones that we are paying to come in, but
Yeah.
internal ones that are
Right.
good for the students or for the parents. I just know for our work, we're doing that more and more, and it's nice because everyone's, kind of super busy. And what I would hate to do is like, and I'll pick on the high school, but for a couple of these, there was really good attendance. For some, there wasn't.
Right.
And it's not necessarily probably the content of the message, it just happened to be a day
Right.
that didn't
That night.
necessarily work.
Right.
And I would hate for that to kind of get cut in future years.
Yep.
You know, at high school conferences, they had that college prep thing and had, I don't know who the guy was, but he was working with the counselors, but he was doing primarily all the talking, and kind of went through and said, as a freshman, this is what we do, as a sophomore, this is what we do. I would say it was pretty well attended. I think 40 people were there. I was there, I know, and I think it was right around 40 people. That would have been a really good one to either one, present to the 8th grade parents so they know, hey, this is what we can expect for next year, and to have it on tape, because I thought it was very helpful.
And it would be good to have it on tape, because after, you know, if you talk to some of your friends that weren't there, they would've went, well, darn, I wish I would've heard it.
Yes, exactly.
And
Or
like for
you
me,
hear it and you're like, oh, what did they say that one part? And
Yes,
be able to go
right,
back.
right.
Listen.
And like for me, I have 2 kids in the high school, so getting through all the teachers by 6 o'clock wasn't happening. So I couldn't, and it was.
I was late.
Yeah, and so I was like, I really wanted to go, but I couldn't. And another one that I did attend, was about the FAFSA. And that was, I mean, it was maybe 20, 25 people, I think, attended. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why is not every senior parent here? Because, or at least ones that haven't gone through the FAFSA before, because it's very complicated. And I'm still working on filling mine out, and I have a ton of questions. And I found that presentation really helpful. And I don't know, it was somebody from South Central College, the community college, who presented, and I don't know if she would have been okay with having that taped, but she seemed like very open to like, yeah, call me anytime, you know, just, so I feel like that would have been a really good one to tape too, because I got a ton of information out of that, so.
I think that's good. I think more webinar type stuff that we can do and offer our parents is a good thing, so good.
Great idea.
Chad's report, special services. Technology director's report. Anything on any of these yet? No. Facilities director's report. Okay, school board members' reports and committee reports. Paraprofessional negotiations are done. They're done.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. May I go back to Tim's facilities director's report? There was one thing that I wanted to highlight. We presented to you the solar panel option. We did some fact checking there, and we didn't want to rush into this because we don't know that it's as good of a deal as what it's made out to be.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's
That's
probably
good.
some benefits there, but is it enough to warrant just rushing through to just get a contract in place before January 1st? We just didn't feel it was, so we said, come back to us after the first of the year when we have a little bit more time to breathe, and we just felt really pressured. And I don't know that we'd be able to put any panels up other than this roof anyway. I don't know that we'd want to put anything on, certainly not the elementary, because that roof is old. In the high school, you know, it's what,
18.
16, 17 years old?
It's getting there too.
It's getting there too, so. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that, but one thing that we did feel was a big benefit is the LED light upgrades. So we're just gonna do that. It's basically, you'd be dumb not to. And so we're working directly with our electrician. They're gonna purchase all the fixtures, and we're going to go ahead and install them internally. And then we're gonna put some light-saving measures in place, similar to what we have in this building, in the high school commons. So daylighting, so when a certain amount of sunlight comes in that clear story, that'll knock those lights down and put more on motion sensors and things like that. Any costs that we incur, we'd recoup that cost, it looks like, in less than a year. So we're gonna use LTFM, the long-term facility maintenance dollars, to take care of any costs, and then, you know, we'll realize that savings right away. So we are gonna move forward with that.
There are some rebates too.
Yep.
The MBC would offer rebates on some of these fixtures as well. So you'd realize it immediately.
Great. Okay, curriculum and technology advisory. Let's see.
Erin went over all of it in detail in her report. I know there was just they're doing some changes on conferences and registration for next year. They're gonna switch some times there that she thought would be, more effective, and I think that's, we talked about some grading, and that's still up in the air of changing some ways that grading will be done. Other than that, she covered everything pretty much in detail.
Booster Club?
Still kicking.
The store's been busy.
The store's been really busy, yeah. So there's new merchandise. Tina and the merchandise crew has done an excellent job. So it has all the refreshed logos and kind of new wardrobes. So get out and buy for the holiday season.
I have.
And then the gymnasium's awesome in terms of the refresh. The scoreboard is, the electronic kind of scoreboard's up, so if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, that's super cool. The kind of the trophy display screen is kind of there, so that's really great. They just had it's been a little bit, but they had a SALT fundraising drive, which was successful. So a lot of the things that we've been talking about over the last several months have started to kind of come to fruition. So it's been a very nice integration of school and Booster Club and community support. So
I'd add the fall activity guide obviously was very successful. The Booster Club is now working on the winter activity guide, so advertisers pay to put that together, and that includes all of our winter activities, and should have that ready to go shortly after the first of the year.
yeah, it's just getting finalized kind of this week. So hopefully that'll be going pretty quickly. But Serena does just a
Amazing.
bang up job with that. So it just looks very, very professional, and it's great. And the biggest kink that they're starting to work through is that there wasn't necessarily kind of a system of getting everyone's kind of names in kind of what team that they were on, and so there was a couple of kind of misspellings here or there. So they're starting to kind of get a process and template in place to kind of minimize some of that. But yeah, that's been absolutely fantastic. So kudos to all the folks that are part of that.
I was looking on the website the other day. We usually do our contributions and stuff at the end of the year. I couldn't find the form, the donation form on the website.
It's there, but we probably could do a better job of highlighting it.
So I might need you to
Yeah.
send me that
Yeah, absolutely.
link to that or something.
Yeah,
Great.
definitely. That's next on the agenda. We're gonna make that thing look
Okay.
a little bit nicer.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else on Booster Club? Okay. ULA? Tom?
Yes, we've met twice in the last month. We're plodding along on it. Again, it's just a nice negotiation to be part of, the teachers and us. I think both sides do a really good job of trying to understand the other side's perspective, and that really helps come into common ground and a lot of that stuff. So I would hope next time we'd probably finish it up, possibly one last one to review it, but we're making good progress.
So after that's completed and Joe, our AD's contractor, is done, we're done.
For 6 months.
Hey, we're
Well,
still
yeah,
done.
hey. Till 284. Okay. Board and superintendent comments. Ryan, I'll start with you.
Well, just busy with activities and choir concerts and band concerts. Gym looks great. I was at the basketball game on Friday night, and the scoreboard is a pretty neat thing to have. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Rob?
Choir concert tonight was awesome. They always do a great job, but it was really, really fun. So kind of fun to be kind of into the holiday season where be able to start to participate in some of those more. Seems like, yeah, a lot of different activities. Basketball, the ability to see the games if you're not necessarily there, and the technology that they have, that basically the camera follows the ball, so you always kind of are seeing kind of the game, though it's not somebody who has to manually do it, and the ability to see the score is really cool, and great for people who might have parents that live in New Mexico that want to see their grandkids.
Or
play.
brothers that are in
Sure.
school, at college.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had a viewing party.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was very
Aw.
cool.
And so,
That's
and that's just
very
another
cool.
way where we can kind of find ways to kind of connect with kind of greater kind of
Yeah.
community. And so if we can just kind of be able to scale that, and take advantage of more and more of those opportunities, I think would be great. But yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that we're almost to the end of the year. This school session is going by so fast.
Darn. I wish I would have known about that. I was out of town when the girls played, so I didn't get to see any of them. I got to see the 7th grade boys play today, so that was nice. The second group will go and play tomorrow. This weekend I was at Delegate Assembly. That was really awesome. If anybody wants to do it, you really should. I'm so mad that I didn't do it a lot sooner, because you just learn so much. So this will probably be a rather long recap, because the MSBA does a lot of work for us as boards. There were 78 resolutions that were submitted by school boards across the state. Their team went through and whittled it down to 28. When I say whittle it down, they didn't just disregard, those. They combined them to where there were multiple districts that submitted something that was very similar. So of the 76, they got it down to 28, which was nice, but that was still a lot to work through. They recommended passage for 23. They were broken out into 5 different categories. You had school finance and state aid, taxation and levies, school board and employee relations, governance, and then educational programs. So at the end of the day, 23 passed and 5 didn't.
And Lauren and Sandy did an awesome job
It was so fun.
representing their
And
area.
it's not like it's like fun, you're out like having a party. It's like, you're like learning from so many different
Yes.
people. And that MSBA crew that does all of this research and puts it all together for you is just amazing. They have the rationale, they go back and document the statute, they take the consideration if it's something that's already covered in some existing law, all of those things. They look at it from a financial perspective. If you pass this, these are what the consequences may or may not be. I mean, it's really awesome. So I would recommend it. I can't wait to go next year.
Good. Connie?
I went to the play, and I thought that the play was very, very well attended, and it was really, really good. That's, I think, what I've done so far.
That's definitely what I've done so far. That kind of took over my life for about a month. But I'd like to thank Mr. Perkel, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Olson for being very good sports, because they were pulled up on stage and really did a really good job. And I think that really added to the audience enjoyment of the play, of seeing somebody that they knew, because I think,
I would like to thank Joe Perkel too, because he was sitting next to me.
I know.
He didn't choose me. So.
When I saw you two walk in together, I'm like, I wonder which of the two is gonna get pulled up, because I'd already seen it once.
Joe was perfect. He played
He
the
was.
part well. So.
He was. And then it was Mr. Olson, I think, on
Mr. Cook
Saturday
was
night.
pretty good.
He was.
He was
He
pretty
was.
good.
But one of the cast members' beard came off,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
his mustache started coming off, and Mr. Olson just reached over and just pulled it off. It was hysterical. It was really well done. The one acts are cast already. They had first rehearsal today, so my life gets to be taken over by that as well. So, and speech season starts soon for us too. So, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I just-
I have not been able to attend a whole lot other than that, because my life has been pretty much that, so. Go ahead.
Pretty much ditto on everybody. The one I'd emphasize is that huddle software in the gym. If you have not got to watch a game live with that, it's wild. I've shown a dozen people how that works, completely unmanned, and the fact that it follows the action. I showed my grandparents, people at work, everything, how that works, and it's a pretty slick deal. So.
Show me.
It's not on there anymore, so no. Tomorrow. So.
We've got a little bit of the concert into the younger boys choir. The song they did was hysterical, wasn't it? Yeah, the concert was great. I want to thank the band and choir for participating in the Jordan Dazzle Parade on Saturday night. They did a phenomenal job. I'm just so proud of them, and it was the choral group that caroled just blew people out of the park. I mean, and the band, just the whole thing was amazing. It was really great. Went to the play also. Went to, wrestling is not my wheel well by any means, but I have a grandson that wrestles, so went to the wrestling match and enjoyed that.
Did he win?
Yes, they beat Wayzata, which was a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Yeah. Congratulations to Sandy. She'll be getting an award at the MSBA luncheon. On Thursday, there'll be a luncheon that we'll all attend, and Sandy will get an award for the Director's Award, I believe it is, for the number of hours of trainings that she's made. Yeah, delegate assembly was really awesome. The speaker Friday night was Professor David Schultz from Hamlin University, and you've probably seen him on TV. Typically, when there's a presidential election, he's one of the commentators on, is it Channel 9, I believe?
Carol 11, he said.
Or Carol 11, yeah. He is phenomenal to listen to, so that was really fun. And yeah, it was a good assembly.
Scarily accurate, too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he does a lot of research, and he has a lot to back it up, and it's just like, wow. And he just makes you think about things that you, in a totally different way. I really want him to come talk to our students.
Yes.
What,
Yeah,
what
he's-
demographic did he say would be predicting the election?
Yeah, the suburban soccer moms
In what state?
in Minnesota.
Wasn't it Green Bay?
Yes, it was Green Bay.
It was Green
Yes,
Bay.
it was
It
Green
was
Bay.
Green
It was.
No kidding.
It was Packer
Yeah.
Moms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good. So that's all I have. So
Move to adjourn.
we are adjourned.
Can you go do taxes? Do you guys use a program?
No.
Do you use person?
He is person.